To start out a file or a job, we're going to go ahead and hit this setup panel, and instantly HSM puts you in the setup environment, and it kicks an automated response, which is to kind of create a bounding box around the existing geometry that's in the screen. Now, it's selected these things as a part automatically just by scanning the model and doing this quickly. It's meant to be a quick tool. What I like to do first and foremost is X that out because I know I'm not going to be using that box as my a model. Now, the importance of selecting a model in HSM is so that HSM knows what geometry you're working at, and that way it doesn't violate the part or violate the stock definitions when you're selecting toolpaths. This is part of the intelligence built into HSM. Now, when you're selecting a model, anything within these selection arrows, if they are depressed, you'll see that they're the color blue. That means you're ready to activate and select using that option. Now, when you hover over anything in the graphics window, you'll see that it's kind of giving me the prompt for selection. In Inventor, and this is not necessarily a HSM tool, but this is an Inventor tool. Within the right-click mouse button, I have this Select Other. Now what that's going to do is toggle through all of the options on the screen, and in this case, using this arrow, I only have the two solids. I have my stock solid or my solid body. And you can see by the red outlines which one I want to select as my part. I'm going to hit that, click that with my solid. And before selecting my WCS, I'm going to go into the stock and do the same thing. Now the default stock option here is a relative size box, and that basically is adding stock to each of the sides of the largest object within the screen that it's decided to put the bounding box over. If I hover over this selection mode, you can see that it gives me all of my options in here. I'm going to go ahead and select the drop down arrow because I have a solid in here. I'm going to go from solid. Again, that's depress the button to select it. Now, currently in HSM, there is a bit of a glitch here, and that is that it wants us to select a solid, but it's only allowing us to select a surface first. Now, it's important to come in here, deselect that, and when you see the entire solid highlighted in the dash red, left-click it, and that selects that solid block. So with HSM now knowing what our stock is and knowing what our part is, we can move on to how the WCS works. There are several ways to select WCS, and you can come in here and manually do things by selecting planes. What I like to do first is select what I want to navigate my origin to. What that means is by selecting this stock box point, that's going to bring up all of the point locations within this block from our stock definition. Now that's again stock box point, but what I want to create this WCS from is a model box point. Now you can do selected point, you can do your model origin. If you've designed this part in the correct WCS, this is going to actually bring that up, and you can see that here. What I'm going to actually do is do a model box point. Before we get into that, I'm going to hit OK to this. That way it accepts some of those setup values. What I want to do is go back into my model browser and turn this stock off. I'm going to turn the visibility off on that. Then I'm going to go back to my CAM browser, and now what you can see is the setup still retained the stock and gives me this shadow box to see visibly where the stock options are, but now the solid is out of the way. So when I come back and I select my model box point, I can see through the box of the stock and see all of the points that I have selected. Now what this is again is a bounding box, and the purpose for picking the stock this way is now I can have my Z0 point on the correct plane at Z0. Now you'll notice things are upside down. We're not going to worry about that for now. I'm going to just select another point here so you can see how this graphic triad moves around based off of my selection. I do very much for the start of this program want it to be at the center. So I'm going to pick that center dot, just like left clicking on it. And now I'm going to manipulate this coordinate system to properly line up to my machine setup. And how we do this is actually very simple. This is one of the easiest WCSs I've ever seen in the industry. And what I'm going to do first and foremost is my Z is upside down. I know I'm going to be machining this side of the part, so I'm going to left click on the head of the arrow. That flips that side of the WCS. And if you select the stem, that prompts the WCS to align with geometry. Again, I can select the shaft of the WCS and I can select a line, and that pulls that along that surface. I'm going to click the arrowhead and align my X properly, and just like that I have my WCS set up. Now the post processor tab within the setup kind of houses the information for your start program. So if this is going to be program number 1, I can select the program name and number. Now the WCS control here is kind of based simply on 0 being automatic output G54, 2 is going to be G55, so on and so forth. You'll notice that this probe output here automatically aligns itself. Now whether or not you're using a probe or not doesn't matter, it's going to ignore that. Multiple work offsets is going to be another feature where if you're going to duplicate the part, it's going to use incrementally the work offset from the first initial work offset point. So that's another option for another time. Now with my setup all set up, I'm going to hit OK, and just like that my setup is complete. Feel free to navigate through some of the other options. A lot of these options are helpful to some people, but I find that using the graphics interface is the easiest way to set up HSM.